I'm Chip Freud, and this is the Artist Spotlight, conversations with contemporary artists based on 5 simple questions that explore the artist's journey, creativity, and sources of inspiration. Welcome to another episode of the Artist Spotlight podcast. I'm Chip Freud, and today I'm joined by Beth Barger. Beth's painting celebrates everyday wonders through her contemporary impressionist style. She strives to connect others with the beauty that surrounds them. Beth was recently awarded honorable mention in the Fine Arts League of Cary's annual exhibition. Beth, welcome to the show.
Chip, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, glad to. We've gotten to know each other a little bit through Falk, and I just thought this would be a great opportunity to share your work with our audience here. Before we dive into our 5 questions, how about you share something that you're currently working on, or maybe a project you just finished with our audience to give them a sense of what you're about?
Okay, I'd be happy to. And I actually have a lot of irons in the fire, or maybe I should say brushes in the paint. But I am getting ready to wrap up this Fine Arts League of Cary juried show, getting all the volunteers lined up to package up all that artwork and get it shipped back to their homes across the country. And I'm also preparing to start teaching some of my first painting classes. So my first class will be offered next week, and then I've got a couple more lined up after that. And then between all of that, I'm still trying to maintain my plein air and studio painting practices. So lots going on.
Oh, that's exciting. I'll be eager to hear how the teaching goes.
Thank you.
All right. So our first question always starts off with, what is your earliest memory of making art of any kind?
So my earliest memory dates back to when I was 4. And my father was in the Navy. So we were stationed up at Great Lakes, Illinois, where they have very long, very cold winters. And I just remember that it was a bitterly cold, blustery winter day. My mom at that time had 2 little kids, and my mom is a former art teacher. But she had 2 little kids that were trapped inside the house that she needed to keep occupied. So she pulled out a stack of construction paper and started making 3-dimensional flowers out of this construction paper and taught us how to make them. And so my brother and I made this huge stack of 3D flowers. And then we lined the hallway of the house with these flowers as a way to anticipate the arrival of spring. And I just remember being so amazed that you could take this flat piece of paper and turn it into a work of art. And that memory has lasted with me for more years than I care to admit, but it's a really great memory.
Oh, what a wonderful image you've painted there, and verbally. I love it. I'm right there with you in the chilly house and making art. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
So you are obviously currently a painter. What brought you to that medium and why?
Well, so I already mentioned that my mom is an artist. She was an art teacher before she had kids. Her mom was also an artist with an art degree from Rochester Institute of Technology. So I'm a 3rd-generation artist. It's just always been part of my legacy. When I was in high school, like many artists, you're known as the class artist. So did all the posters and stuff like that. And then when I went to college, it was really when women were starting to think about having their own careers. And I wanted to invest in a curriculum that I could have a career in. And up until that point, I had really not started painting. I was very interested in graphic design because I could make a living at it if I needed to. So I got my graphic design degree from East Carolina University, and I practiced graphic design actually for, I think it was 15 years. The last 10 years of my graphic design career were spent in the design studio at IBM in Research Triangle Park. But during that time, design became less and less important to IBM. And so my career moved more towards a management position, spent some years in management. And then from there, I actually went into human resources. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of very similar problem solving skills between solving a design problem and solving a human resources problem because they are both subjective ways of problem solving.
Oh, interesting to make that
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. I think that's the connection. I knew several people who had art degrees that went into human resources. So anyway, I ended up having the opportunity to retire from that position in 2017. And I've been painting full time ever since then. But let me take you back to 2001. So I was a manager, and my mom approached me about possibly attending a oil painting plein air workshop with her in Brittany, France. My dad being a Navy guy and already having been around the world, he had no interest in traveling outside of the United States again. And my mom really didn't want to go by herself. So I'm like, sure, I'll go. Had never really picked up a paintbrush because painting just is not part of a graphic design curriculum. Had not ever picked up a paintbrush, and went with her on this 2.5 week workshop. And let me just tell you, the first couple of paintings were awful. They were really terrible. I had no idea how to mix colors. I had no idea what values were. But at least my graphic design education kind of intuitively led me to, we really need to simplify here. And maybe in some ways it's like the photographer's progression, where you don't start with color photography, you start with black and white so that you learn what makes a good composition, what are the values and the range of values that make for an interesting result. And so I just intuitively decided, maybe I just need to limit my colors to purples only, dark purples, light purples, warm purples, cool purples, and do some paintings like that before I start worrying about dark and light and warm and cool with all of the colors. And that really made a huge difference. And within the 2.5 weeks, I turned out a painting that I'm still pretty proud of. And that just got me hooked.
I think you bring up an interesting technique of minimizing choices. I still use that approach if I get creatively stuck. So if I'm just not feeling the mojo, I'll take a camera, with just a 50 millimeter fixed focal length lens. It's even an old manual focus lens. And I'll force myself to go, shoot with just that lens, remove all the other, choices. Mm-hmm. And I may not get a single image that would even remotely belong in the portfolio, but it gets me over the creative hump because it forces you to think differently, think out of the box, and do something different. So I think that was really wise on your part to say, all right, let's simplify it. Purple was your choice. It's probably a color you really enjoy.
Well, I do enjoy purple, but I also thought purple would translate well to all the historic stone buildings we were.
Okay. Yeah. It went with the subject matter you were working on.
Yep.
Okay. That makes even more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's something that all artists, we can go back to that and touch that point when we need to.
Absolutely. And I think doing something like that, simplifying or whatever your trick may be, is more important just to keep you practicing every day than to fall into a rut where you're not practicing your photography or picking up the brushes for a few days or a week, and it doesn't take long before you start to get really rusty at it.
Yeah. Now, there's definitely trying to remember, there was a famous artist I was reading a piece on that they were talking about treating their artwork like any other job. And they reported to the studio every day for X number of hours. And even if only one brush stroke ended up on the canvas, that's what they did.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of your artists who are really serious about it, that's their approach. Yeah. Even if you don't pick up a brush, at least get in the studio where you might be tempted to pick up your
Right.
brush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this leads nicely into our third question is, what inspires your art? Where does it come from?
So I would have to say that my art comes from my heart and my life journey. When I was in my mid 20s, I had a bit of a health scare, which made me appreciate that every single day is a gift. And every single day should be celebrated because you never know when that gift is going to stop giving. And so that translates into so many different things. Lately, my passion has been inspired by light and the way that light shows us form, the way that it falls across the landscape or the way it falls across a face, the way light changes the colors that we see, the way that light bounces into shadows and how many colors there are in shadows. So that is a huge inspiration to me. And then nature and legacy are also big inspirations. One of my first big projects was, I called it 10 on 1010. So I live right off of a road called 1010 in Wake County. And I've lived here for close to 30 years now. And that road has changed so much.
Mm.
Almost all the farmland is gone. And now they are in the process of widening parts of that road and putting subdivisions in. And a new belt line is within a mile of my house. And it's just heartbreaking to me to not only lose the farmland, but all of the wildlife that goes with it. And I can't tell you how many nights I haven't been able to sleep worried about the turtles that just can't move fast enough to get out of the way. So I need to stop because I'm going to start crying. But so that inspired me to do a series of paintings to portray and capture many of the scenes along 1010. Some of the tobacco fields. There's a tractor that gets lit up every Christmas time, an old depot in downtown Apex. So those kinds of subjects that kind of tug at the heartstrings are also what inspire me.
I definitely need to check out that series because I'm just a little bit north of you off a penny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I know that road well,
Yeah.
and can relate to some of the changes that have been there. Just a quick aside, because I'm also an environmental educator. Anybody who sees a turtle crossing the road, when you stop to help the turtle cross, always take it to the side of the road that it was trying to get to. Because if you put it, even if it's just 2 feet off the side where it left, if you put it back there, it's going to try to cross the road again. So just a little nature helpers tip there. Always send them to the side they were trying to get to.
Absolutely. And I'm going to add to that. Don't put box turtles in water. They're not
Oh
water
yeah,
turtles.
no. They like moist leaves and in the woods, and yeah,
Yeah.
don't put them in the water.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what a box turtle is, they're the ones with a much more round-topped shell. The flat-shelled turtles are the water turtles.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, back to art.
Good discussion, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so our fourth question is, what advice would you give to an artist starting out?
Okay, well, I have lots of suggestions, but I'll try to keep it to just a few. First of all, I would say that just be patient with yourself and kind to yourself because painting is really a journey and there is an enormously steep learning curve to it. Even the masters, we recently lost one of our masters, Richard Schmidt, who was one of the best, most well known painters in the United States. Um, Even he, shortly before he died, said he still feels like he has so much more to learn. And he'd already, at that point, been painting for 70 years. So don't beat yourself up, just enjoy the journey. That's the first thing I would share. And then I would also say to always work to develop your drawing skills. The best technical painting skills in the world won't make up for poor drawing skills. So, drawing is very important. And then, if you are working with the intent to try to sell your art, then be prepared to spend about 50% of your time on the marketing of your artwork, with social media, with your website. Maybe you do newsletters, but it really does take about as much time to market your artwork as it does to create it.
And it may be such that you may go a week that all you're doing is the business side of it, and then you'll catch up and
Absolutely.
do your creative production at another time. It's not
Absolutely.
evenly divided.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's a key point, and
Yeah.
something I wish that they actually would do better job of teaching in art school is the business side of art. I think it's getting better. I've talked to a few recent grads, and they're starting to include some of that in the curriculum.
That is really encouraging because when I was in college, not a single business class, for somebody who was pursuing a BFA. And so that left none of us equipped at all to be, individual graphic designers and have our own business.
Yeah,
It just about required that you go work for somebody else at least to get those business skills, if nothing else.
yeah. No, because one of the things that I remind folks is every artist is also a small business.
Yep.
And so all of, when you hear about, oh, support local, support small business, well, that applies to every artist.
Yep. Yep. You have to maintain your inventory. You have to do taxes. You have to manage your client relationships. You have to ship. Yeah. Yeah. It is truly a small business.
Well, I think those are some good additions to the collection of advice.
Well, and Chip, can I circle back to your previous question about inspiration? Because I
Yeah.
remembered one thing that I forgot to mention, and that's about the materials that I work in.
Hmm.
I enjoy oil paints, and I wanted to bring this up because I think there's some confusion about painting mediums. And a lot of people enjoy painting in acrylic, and that is great. But I also think that it is important for people to understand that oil painting isn't necessarily bad for the environment, and acrylic painting isn't necessarily better for the environment. So lately, there have been some new techniques coming out with oil painting where I have just about eliminated mineral spirits and solvents from my studio. I do
Hmm.
still use them when I'm out plein air painting because I'm out in open, fresh air, but just use walnut oil. I clean my brushes now with walnut oil. And let me tell you, my brushes are in much better condition because they're not in those harsh chemicals. And the air in my house is so much better than it used to be. My studio is in my house.
Yeah.
Um, so there are ways to paint with oils that's not toxic unless you're going to eat them, but any paint uses the same minerals and pigments.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the binders that differ.
Right.
So I just thought, since we talked a little bit about the environment, I'd
Yeah.
bring that up too.
Oh, that's a great point. And even aside from, I'll call it the environmental side, it sounds like there's a personal benefit of reducing the solvents in your life and just making it a more pleasant environment to work in.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah.
I'd not heard that tip of using walnut oil. That's awesome.
Yeah, it has to be the artist grade walnut oil, not the cooking walnut oil, because they're processed differently. But
Okay.
artist grade walnut oil is a great substitute for solvents.
Is it a thinner or more viscous material, or less viscous, I should say, than a cooking oil?
It's I don't know that it's the viscosity that's different, um, but I think that the painting oil is actually a more pure
Hmm.
form, has been refined further
Yeah,
than the cooking grade.
that would make sense so that you're not contaminating things.
Right. Right. Yeah. For preservation purposes.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that's a wonderful little bit of tidbit there.
Well,
Thank
good.
you for going back to pull that one in.
Oh, sure. Thank you for allowing me to.
So, our last question, and I can't believe we're already to our last question. This has been fun. But the last question is, what artists would you recommend our listeners go check out? This could be somebody new that you just discovered. It could be an old master that you go back to time and again. Um, you know, who should we go check out?
Well, I had a really hard time trying to limit this question down to one. So I'll try
You
to,
can you can do a couple.
okay, I'll try to be quick about mentioning a couple. So some of them are old masters, and some of them are who I would consider to be current masters. So the old masters, Joaquin Sorolla and John Singer Sargent, for the exact reasons that light inspires me to paint. They were masters at painting light, and they were able to do it in such a way that their brushstrokes are nice and loose and fresh. And you look at the painting, and it looks like they did not have the slightest struggle in throwing this beautiful masterpiece together. And a great example of that is a painting by Sorolla that's titled Mending the Sails. The white sails just all folded up amongst these people, and how he was able to manipulate all of the different colors that are in white
Mm-hmm.
and make it look like that crumpled fabric is just breathtaking. Today's contemporary to that, one of today's contemporaries, I would say, is Daniel Gerhartz. He is a current painter, and the light that he captures in his paintings is just phenomenal. And then two local artists' names. One is Nicole White Kennedy, and the second one is Jean Grunwald. They are both nationally known artists, and their work is really spectacular. And Nicole does a lot of, she's inspired by light. She does a lot of figures on the beach. And so in that way, her work reminds me a lot of Sorolla and his figures on the beach. Yeah, so those are my inspirations.
Well, excellent. One of the things I've enjoyed about the podcast is um, it's sort of like getting a mini art history class because talking to each artist, it gives me any direction to who to go check out and why. So it is in some ways very selfish why I ask for this because I never had any art history classes. I was not a fine art major by any stretch. Uh, but I've always appreciated it. So this is it's been a fun set of discussions. And some of the names you've shared, I know the names, so that's telling me that I'm learning something.
Well, like so many other things, it's an ongoing process. So
Indeed, it
yeah.
is. Thank you again for your time today. For those in the audience who are interested in checking out Beth's work, you can probably start off at her website, bbargerart.com. That's BBARGERART.com, as well as Barger Art on Facebook and Instagram. And in person, you can see her work at Carolina Creations in New Bern and the Maddie Davis Art Gallery in Beaufort. So with that, Beth, I bid you adieu and say thank you very much once again.
Adios, Chip, and thank you very much. I enjoyed our conversation.
This has been another episode of the Artist Spotlight Podcast. As always, you can find links in the show notes to all the artists referenced here by Beth, as well as to her own work. Thank you once again, and tune in next time as we spotlight another contemporary artist. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Artist Spotlight with Chip Freund. Find accompanying blog posts at chipfreundphoto.com/blog, and you may subscribe to our show on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like listening.